No DQ Galaxy, we are live with a recap of AEW Dynamite for Wednesday, June 19th, 2024. We are getting close to the Forbidden Door pay-per-view that is coming up very soon. We kicked off Dynamite with MJF, the former AEW World Champion, MJF versus Roosh with commercial-free action. Roosh was very arrogant during this match. MJF always looking for an opportunity. Roosh wanted MJF to chop him. MJF hyped up everybody, but instead raked the eyes of Roosh. Roosh then headbutted MJF, quite a brutal headbutt to gain control. He taunted MJF, but then that gave MJF an opportunity. Later in the match, they brought on the outside of the ring. MJF was thrown into the barricade repeatedly. Roosh then distracted the referee by throwing a chair in the ring, and then he used a cable from under the ring to choke out MJF. He went for the horns on the outside, but MJF avoided it. However, Roosh kept his momentum going. He suplexed MJF off the apron to the floor, and then after we had our little picture-in-picture, I guess, limited commercial breaks, MJF once again countered the horns. MJF then hit the heat seeker, followed by a brainbuster to pick up the victory. No surprise here. MJF scores the victory. And then after the match was over, we had the Gates of Agony on the big screen, and Hechinero has challenged MJF to a match at Forbidden Door. Match was very good with Roosh. I enjoyed it for what it was. Didn't think for a second that Roosh was winning, though. This match, I'm sure it will be good, but I have no interest in seeing MJF versus Hechinero. At least Roosh has been a regular on AEW television. I just have no interest in it whatsoever. I really do not care about this match, with all due respect to MJF. I mean, MJF could wrestle a broom and he would find a way to make it entertaining. But this, I'm sure it'll be good, but I personally have no emotional investment in the match. All right, we had a backstage promo with Orange Cassidy, Mark Briscoe, Kyle O'Reilly, and Dante Martin to hype up their 8-man tag team match, and Jack Perry walked right by them. And we had an in-ring segment with Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay. They went back and forth. Ospreay said that he is capable of carrying both titles, unlike what Swerve said last week on Dynamite. And then he said that he has held 3 titles on 3 continents at the same time, and he noted that Swerve will be tested at Forbidden Door. And Swerve responded by questioning if Ospreay can actually do it on his own. And Ospreay responded by saying that he doesn't need anybody to beat Swerve. And he said that when Swerve had a hit row, he had a hit list. And he said he hasn't missed with everybody he's gone after. And then Swerve said that Ospreay will have to sacrifice everything including his family, his wife and his son, to be the world champion. Now, as you might imagine, Ospreay was not amused by this whatsoever. He warned Swerve to not make it personal, and Prince Nana even came in and tried to calm everything down. Ospreay started to leave, but then Swerve said that the world title, it's always personal. And then he said to give his regards to Ospreay's wife and child. Ospreay then, of course, got in his face and started to get heated again. And this was our setup for the paper. Sorry about that, a little technical difficulties, but we're back. I apologize for that. We got some stormy weather here in Michigan, so trying to get through this best I can. Sorry if I sounded a little bit distracted too. It's a little crazy outside right now. We had our 8-man tag team match. By the way, the promo segment with Swerve and Ospreay, I thought was fine. Pretty standard build up for the pay-per-view, you know, making the personal reference to build up the heat. Something we've seen many times over the years. It was fine. Next up, we had the 8-man tag team match. We had Takeshita, Kyle Fletcher, Roderick Strong, and Zack Sabre Jr. versus Orange Cassidy, Mark Briscoe, Kyle O'Reilly, and Dante Martin. Things broke down right away, and then you had a couple of dives. Mark jumped off the chair doing the Sabu spot to everybody on the outside. Dante then did a big dive to everyone, and order was finally restored during the commercial break. Orange Cassidy and Zack Sabre Jr. went at it after the commercial break. They have their match at Forbidden Door. And then we had Takeshita coming in, and he power bombed Dante Martin out of the corner, went for the cover, but the pin was broken up. And then we had some communication issues between Takeshita and Roderick Strong. And then after, we had another commercial break. Dante Martin tagged out to Mark Briscoe. Mark was building up momentum, and then everybody on Mark's team was taking out Takeshita with top rope moves. And then Takeshita's teammates ended up making the save. O'Reilly then took a bullet for Orange Cassidy. Orange Cassidy then capitalized, hit Roderick Strong with the orange punch, and got the 1-2-3 victory. And then after the match, Jack Perry attacked Dante Martin on the stage, and then Zack Sabre Jr. got in Orange Cassidy's face. Match was good. Pretty much your standard Dynamite multi-man match with a lot of high flying, a lot of chaos. And they set up, they built up the ladder match and built up the Zack Sabre Jr. versus Orange Cassidy match. It was fine for what it was. We had a Mercedes Moné video package to hype up Forbidden Door. And then we had Don Callis meeting with Roosh backstage. So maybe Roosh is going to be a new member of the Don Callis family. Next up, we had the Young Bucks versus the Acclaimed. And Max Caster's rap was censored by Okada backstage. And Okada used the term bitches. So that's his new gimmick. He says bitches and gets the pop from the crowd. Note to Okada, you're not Jesse Pinkman. Stop it. Anyways, another good match with these guys. You had Anthony Bowens selling his leg for most of the match. It was all taped up, and he was in a lot of trouble at several points in this match. Caster kept coming in, trying to make the save. The Bucks did this neck breaker and powerbomb combo. Bowens kicked out of it. They could not put Bowens away. And then they got desperate. Nicholas got the championship, but he accidentally hit his brother. And then Caster came back in, hit the mic drop, and then Bowens pinned Matthew to pick up the win. This was an eliminator match, so that means the Acclaimed will get a future tag team title opportunity. There you go. We had the challengers or potential challengers win an eliminator match. Unfortunately, I don't really care all that much about the Acclaimed at this point in time. And it wasn't a tornado tag. That's just how AEW matches are, where, people are in there and, sometimes they're making tags. Sometimes you have 4 people in the ring or 6 people or 8 people, and it's all chaotic. Next up, we had Samoa Joe and Hook backstage, and they were looking for the premier athletes. I guess this is still a thing. And there was a piece of paper in their locker room. They were not there. And I guess Mark Sterling wrote it. And there's going to be a match on Collision. And Shibata was apparently filming this. And he also, through his translator, used the word bitch. So I guess that's going to be a thing now, where every Japanese wrestler in AEW is going to say bitch for the pop. Kind of lame if you ask me. I don't know. I'm not feeling it. Like I said earlier, you can't outdo Jesse Pinkman. That's Jesse's line with the bitch. We had a contract signing, which if you have followed this channel for a while, I'm not the biggest fan of these. We had a Toni Storm, Mina Shirakawa contract signing. Mariah May was the moderator, and basically Mina said that Toni Storm has gotten soft and weak as champion, and she said she's going to take Toni's title and the girl at Forbidden Door, of course, talking about Mariah May. And then Toni used her line, tits out, watch for the shoe, whatever it is. And then Mina said that Mariah must choose who she's going with. And then we had Saraya and Harley Cameron come out there, and they were not alone. Anna Jay came out there, and we had a big brawl. Toni then used the shoe. She went for a hip attack, but missed and went through the table. And as this was all going on, Mina and Mariah May fled up to the stage and were up there together. So I guess the plot thickens for this one. Yeah, I mean, the contract signing wasn't bad to look at, but yeah, this storyline's pretty low rent in my opinion. It feels like I'm watching a high school play at this point. They announced the Owen Hart Memorial Cup matches, which, I mean, it is a significant, 2 significant tournaments, because the winners will go on to All In. You got Claudio versus Pac, Bryan Danielson versus Shingo Takagi, not sure how to pronounce his name, Ray Phoenix versus Jay White, Jeff Jarrett versus Wild Card. And then for the women's, we have Willow Nightingale versus Zarina Deeb, Nyla Rose versus Kris Statlander, Deonna Purrazzo versus Hikaru Shida, and Mariah May versus Saraya. Now, the wild card one is interesting because I would go with Bryan Danielson to win this unless the wild card is MJF. If it's not MJF, then Danielson seems like the only logical choice, since this is apparently going to be his last big hurrah. his time as a full-time wrestler coming to an end soon. And I think Jeff Jarrett's just in it because of his friendship with Owen Hart. But, that's a nice touch. The women's tournament, maybe Mariah May wins it or Saraya. I did mention Saraya versus Toni Storm for All In. So Saraya might be the odds-on favorite for this one. If not, I would think it's going to be either Mariah or Saraya, one of those two, and they're in this first round match. I don't think it's going to be Hangman Page if Page is in it. I mean, he'll be in it, but I don't see him winning it. We had the Owen Hart match. We had Kris Statlander versus Nyla Rose. Nyla Rose got a good reaction. I think this is where was this show? Fairfax, Virginia. I think that's her neck of the woods. Match was all right. Pretty standard women's match. Statlander had the early advantage. Then Nyla made a comeback after the break. Nyla kicked out of a few things after Statlander regained control, but then Statlander hit a tombstone, got the 1-2-3 victory. That was pretty impressive. I thought that was a good finish. Match was okay though, nothing too noteworthy. And then Stokely Hathaway cut a post-match promo, and Stokely ripped into Willow Nightingale, and Willow interrupted on the big screen. She's coming for some revenge. We had Chris Jericho interrupting Private Party backstage, and this was basically setting up a match for Collision, and Jericho used the Hulk Hogan line because he was talking about how to avoid getting hit with a pile driver, and he says that what you tell the person is, that doesn't work for me, brother, which is a reference to Hulk Hogan. Kind of dumb. I'm still not into the Jericho gimmick. It just, I'm not feeling it. And speaking of things I'm not feeling, Danny Garcia is still a thing. Danny Garcia won a squash match, and then Daddy Magic, who was on commentary, got attacked by the Gates of Agony and Brian Cage. Hechicero came out there, and MJF ran down to make the save, but he got overwhelmed. Hechicero put him in an armbar, and then Will Ospreay came down to help MJF, and they backed into each other, and we had the little face-off, MJF and Ospreay. Crowd was chanting, "Holy shit." And then, as it turns out, Ospreay was really only there to help Danny Garcia. So we got the tease. But unless MJF's in the tournament, then they're not going to be doing this at All In. So if this wasn't to set up All In, then I'm a little confused as to when they're going to do this match. I don't think there's a bigger or better time to do it than All In. We had a backstage segment after the commercial. Brian Cage was pissed off that Ospreay came out there, wanted a match for the international title on Collision, and Ospreay accepted. And I usually say that Brian Cage wins on Rampage or Collision, but he ain't going to win on Collision. I would be very shocked. We had our main event, which was Pac versus Claudio with Bryan Danielson on commentary. And this was a really good match, as you would expect. Pac, right out of the gate, came off the top with a drop kick, sent Claudio to the outside, but then Claudio connected with an uppercut on the outside of the ring. And then Claudio, back in the ring, applied the giant swing. He hit the lariat, but Pac managed to kick out. and then Pac applied the brutalizer. Claudio countered that into a crossface, and then Pac managed to get out of that. And then they started trading near falls back and forth, one after another. And finally, Pac with I believe it was a crucifix pin, got Claudio down for the 1-2-3 victory. And Bryan Danielson was quite shocked about this. And he was not expecting to see his Blackpool Combat Club teammate lose, nor did I. But I mean, Pac winning, I guess good for him, changes things up a little bit since Bryan and Claudio already had a match in the Continental Classic. So now you change it up a little bit. So it was a good main event. They didn't really do any cliffhanger or anything, just, the tournament continues. All in all, Dynamite was okay. I really wasn't that emotionally invested in too much on the show. Like, it was just okay. Like, I still feel like a lot of the characters are flat. The storylines aren't that great. The wrestling is really strong. I mean, that's always been AEW's strong suit. The quality of wrestling is very high, but it was one of those shows where I really felt like if I skipped it, I wouldn't have really missed much. Like, my life would be just fine if I never saw this show. So it was okay. Good wrestling show, pretty standard by AEW standards. Good wrestling. Characters are, to me, not that intriguing at this point, and the storylines are okay. I mean, nothing to me is really on fire right now, but you can always count on it if you just want to watch a solid wrestling show on Wednesday nights. Dynamite will give you that. So I give the show a C+. It was okay. Definitely not. I mean, I felt like Raw was way more intriguing of a show. So yeah, I thought it was okay. Nothing too great. Forbidden Door. I mean, the last two were fantastic shows, and I know it's going to be great, but the card, nothing's really exciting me too much. Like, I know Swerve and Ospreay will be great, and it's going to be an awesome show, but I'm just not really feeling the storylines or the build-up or even the matches. Like MJF's match, like, okay, whatever. MJF's winning. Let's move on here. Like, I want to see MJF versus Ospreay. You're already teasing MJF versus Ospreay. Why do I have to see this other match with this guy from CMLL? I really don't care personally, unless you're like a diehard CMLL fan. Like, I don't know why you would be overly excited for this. But anyways, thank you all for tuning in tonight. I appreciate it. And again, my apologies for the technical issues earlier. Have a great rest of your week, everyone. I will see you Friday after SmackDown. It's going to be in Chicago. CM Punk will be there. Should be a fun one. But until then, say yes to No DQ. Buy a shirt at nodq.com/merch. And I will see you all next time.